We are going to show who's the best,
This is a big event.
who's the best champion,
Super Bowl for me.
and who's going to be Sugar Ray Robinson's successor.
This is a fight that all fight fans should watch because you really got two executioners in the ring.
Felix Trinidad.
Excitement. I could hardly wait. Fantastical. Whew. I feel good all over.
Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be looking at what is likely one of the most dominant performances the boxing world has ever seen, when the knockout king Felix Trinidad, one of the most brutal fighters in boxing throughout the 1990s, was stopped in his tracks by the legendary Bernard Hopkins in a fight that is not only remembered among the classic demolition jobs in boxing, but also as one of the most unexpected victories in the ring. It is rare in the sport for two champion fighters to clash for all the marbles, and for one to completely eviscerate the other from the first seconds to the last. This, however, was the case when Trinidad met his match in Hopkins, with the executioner demolishing the Puerto Rican knockout king for over 11 rounds of boxing action.
Trinidad for not ducking out of the tournament and showing that he's a great champion by fighting another great champion.
Right now, I'm the WBA champion, and I'm sure that at the end, I will have the 3 world titles.
WBF and WBC welterweight champion of the world, introducing Felix Trinidad.
Throughout the 1990s, it seemed that the force that was Felix Trinidad was simply destroying all worlds, conquering the welterweight division with ease, and fast becoming a household name, not only in the sport of boxing, but in the sporting world itself. Trinidad was one of the most exciting prospects on the boxing planet, and among his brutal reign in the 1990s, and 30 of his 35 straight victories coming by way of knockout. And it was in his 20th fight where Trinidad would secure his first title, defeating Maurice Blocker for the IBF welterweight title. And just 3 fights later, Trinidad would claim his biggest scalp, taking apart fellow Puerto Rican icon Hector Macho Camacho to a unanimous decision victory.
Felix Trinidad here in the 3rd round, final second. Big change in the tide here. The flood championship Felix Trinidad in the white trunks with the red trim. He's the champion. And the ability he's had to punch whatever it may be is at 140 and below. So he hasn't had heating up. Felix is heating up the pace, and he's willing to eat some counter punches to do it. It won't help his case. Take a point away right now. On a counter punch, left hand by Trinidad and holding. Look at the grab. Look. What is he going to do? Take another point, Bobby? But he is feeling the effects. And yet he appeared more hurt and more out of it. Did he though? Blocker. And Luis Garcia. And for having such a paid the price of wasting his talent on high life and not having the energy that he needs.
Trinidad.
Trinidad proved himself more than a knockout machine, however, taking apart the legendary Pernell Whitaker to a brutal unanimous decision victory.
One shot hurts you. Duck and dodge the next time. Straight, looking at a punch. Hit. Down goes Whitaker. Trinidad is an extra base hitter, and he hit a clean shot.
It's impressive primarily because he's been having so much trouble with Whitaker.
Cherry picking in effect against Whitaker. Waits. And this will be ruled a slip as well. And for Whitaker. And another.
His power.
All right, George, some of our
means. That's all he knows is a knockout. Trinidad is though he's inviting Sweet Peter Thorny.
pound with the left hand.
It was just months later in 1999 where Trinidad claimed the biggest scalp of his career, defeating Oscar de la Hoya in a fight billed the Fight of the Millennium, en route to a majority decision victory. The result itself was controversial, and most notable for De La Hoya's complete defensive posture. After seemingly had dominated Tito in the earlier rounds, De La Hoya would not only fight from the outside from the latter rounds onwards, confident he had secured a decision victory. However, it wasn't to be, with Trinidad winning by decision, handing Oscar his first ever defeat of his career.
Well, if you choose to fight this,
Come in here and box. He has followed his...
The victory catapulted Trinidad atop the boxing pound-for-pound world, with the Puerto Rican fighter firming as one of the most terrifying weapons in the sport, with the speed, knockout power, and boxing IQ to match.
I know Hopkins is going to come well prepared to fight with me, but once I hit him, the fight's going to be over. I know Hopkins...
And while Trinidad was mounting his unstoppable rise atop of the boxing pound-for-pound rankings, the middleweight division was at the mercy of a brutal and perfectly technical force, who would later go on to not only dominate the middleweight divisions in the late 90s and early 2000s, but would in fact develop into the greatest fighting machine the boxing world had to offer in the 2000s. Needing no introduction, the executioner, Bernard Hopkins. In a career that spanned over 4 decades, Hopkins would be one of the most decorated athletes in the sport. 67 fights, 55 wins, 32 coming by way of knockout. Hopkins started off as a knockout artist and shifted into a technical genius, and as time went on, Hopkins would later be known for his exceptional longevity and his ability to compete at such an advanced level long after he passed what is traditionally a fighter's prime years. Hopkins, a highly strategic and technical defensive fighter with good speed, power, and elite counter-punching ability, and as such a seasoned fighter, he was able to take advantage of any situation in the ring, being able to fight on the inside or at distance. However, it wasn't all clear skies for the legendary Hopkins, with a troubled childhood, returning to crime at a very young age, and by age 17, Hopkins was sentenced to 18 years at Gatorford Prison for 9 felonies.
You face the years that's been put in front of you. It's a world within a world. We call it the walls of China. The walls are so tall. Guards with scope rifles. A lot of people that came through there didn't make it out. All other inmates, they looking at the new fish. They looking for fear. They looking for body language to show fear. All eyes is on you. I was in the hospital with tubes everywhere. Tubes here, punch a lung, tubes down my throat, IVs, When I got home, I was like a hero because I almost died. All rational thinking is out of the window in the hood. Period. Nobody sits there and thinks about the repercussion of getting 50 years for taking a gun and blowing somebody's head off. They going off emotions, anger, stupidity. All the other stuff don't mean nothing. I've been arrested 30 plus times. Start off assaults, which led into robbery. It's the same thing. You know, a guy's not trying to give you what you want. You rough him up, you take it. It's assault, robbery. So it's hand in hand. One charge support the other. I had about 1 or 2 maybe auto thefts where I was in a car. One time I know I was driving. This other time I was with the person who we both stole the car.
Was a bad kid.
I didn't care. I want what you got, give it to me, I'm taking it. I've been arrested about 30 plus times.
He went to prison for real crimes.
I joined the boxing program in prison in 1984. I became the jailhouse champion.
After leaving prison in 1988, serving just 5 years, Hopkins would devote his entire life to the sport of boxing, setting off one of the most iconic and legendary careers the sport has ever seen.
So I was a loner for a good part of that 2.5 to 3 years prior to meeting boxing people. In 1988, I turned pro and fought my first pro fight in Atlantic City. A guy named Clinton Mitchell out of Yonkers, New York. I lost my first fight. As a professional. That right there should have maybe discouraged me.
In 1988, Hopkins lost his debut pro card to Clinton Mitchell via a majority decision. Post-loss, Hopkins took a 16-month layoff and redirected himself as a middleweight, going 21 wins without a loss, 16 of which by way of knockout, 12 of which coming in the first round of action.
3 straight wins with 16 impressive knockouts.
The end of the first round.
What do you think his nickname is? Take a while. Let me guess. The Executioner. Yes, indeed.
Hopkins would meet his first big challenger, the legendary Roy Jones Jr. in 1993. Roy Jones went on to defeat Hopkins on points, but the fight would ignite one of the great middleweight rivalries of all time.
But you notice away from the ropes effectively, lands the right hand over the big heavyweight championship fight upcoming. The crowd has retained all of its potential enthusiasm. Roy Jones Jr.
The IBF came knocking on Hopkins' door the following year with a scheduled bout against Segundo Mercado in his hometown of Quito, Ecuador. Mercado dropped Hopkins twice before the Executioner rallied late, earning a split decision draw.
That right hand right there, that's what did it. That little right hand. He instantly got up because he really got it. Oh, see how clean that was? And the delayed reaction of him going back. Had he hit him that
Firing that age in the corner.
just let it hang out.
You got the feeling,
All this conversation about not coming in here in time, and still he's out here.
And in their subsequent rematch, Hopkins would become the IBF champion after a 7th round knockout in Baltimore, Maryland.
Hopkins got to do a little bit better than he did in that first round. He's got to take low punches back
to the body. But I'll tell you what, blood just...
He says let him go, but Mercado ain't let him go. And I don't blame him. Hold it, that's it. That is it.
Brody Battle leaving it off as he stares into the eyes of Mercado.
In his first title defense, he demolished Steve Frank in a grand total of just 24 seconds.
And hope to fight it later in the fight. Good right hand right out of the box. Down goes Frank.
He doesn't take a shot, he looks, he waits, hesitates, and bang, he's caught.
And he is hurt too. Well, he didn't give the right answer. It's that simple.
And by the end of 2000, he had defended his IBF title 12 times, including demolition jobs of John David Jackson, the undefeated Glenn Johnson, former champion Simon Brown, and knockout artist Antoine Eccles.
If you have a chance to start unifying the title, which champion do you want next?
Both of them at the same time and the same night.
All right, well, congratulations to you. Great performance by Bernard Hopkins, the IBF middleweight champion of the world.
Dan Goosen.
We'll be back here.
Countdown to Trinidad versus Hopkins for the undisputed middleweight world championship.
In the fight build, and then there was one, taking place on September 29, 2001, Hopkins would finally meet the explosive Felix Trinidad to unify all three titles and decide the first undisputed middleweight champion since Marvin Hagler, also becoming the ring middleweight champ and ultimately the pound-for-pound #1 in the world. With all of the great classic matches boxing has to offer, the Hopkins-Trinidad clash provided some of the most iconic pre-fight headlines, with the challenger Hopkins angering the entire nation of Puerto Rico by showing up to the press conference in San Juan with not only beans and rice, but he would go on to throw down the Puerto Rican flag on the floor, having to escape from a crowd of furious Puerto Ricans.
Continued the campaign of belligerence at multiple press stops, including an incident in Puerto Rico that saw pre-fight hype become hysteria when Hopkins once again threw the Puerto Rican flag to the ground.
Bernard, I'll start with you. The cap says war, and your wildly confrontational behavior at news conferences both in New York and Puerto Rico has Puerto Rican fans wanting to go to war against you. Did you do the things you were doing to call attention to the fight or to get under the skin of your opponent?
Neither. I made a statement that I felt that I was being disrespected. Even to today, I felt that I was being disrespected, not only through Felix Trinidad, father, but through the Spanish community once we began our fight tour. And I reacted the way that I felt that needed to be reacted. It wasn't wildly, as far as I understand, it was justifiable, and it wasn't to get under his skin. But if it did get under his skin, then so be it. He'll take care of it September 15th, I hope.
Right from the time of its making, the Bernard Hopkins-Felix Trinidad matchup would promise the victor with a coronation of sorts, anointing and appointing of the one left standing as a legend of the sport, likely placing them among the champions of all the different eras. The bout did, however, to appear to be more about establishing Trinidad's credentials as a great of the sport than it was Hopkins assuming this mantle. Trinidad, a huge favorite entering the fight with an unbeaten record, previously beating the Golden Boy Oscar de la Hoya, whereas Hopkins, on the other hand, possessing a solid record with decent yet largely unspectacular victories against reasonable opponents, a record sullied by a loss of Roy Jones Jr. The fight began slowly, with both fighters circling the ring at a distance and trading jabs in a close first round.
Both fighters try lead right hand. Back hand inside by Bernard. Hopkins again lands the right. Trinidad misses.
The second round follows suit, with Hopkins and Trinidad still feeling each other out and staying away from one another. Hopkins lands the first big punch of the night and an overhand right just before the bell.
Trinidad threw a limited number of punches for him in round one. Now he lands the right hand. A position to be in. For the guy. Knowing that he continues. Right hand by Hopkins. Biggest blow of the fight. Trinidad momentarily stunned.
The fourth round sees Trinidad land his first power punches of the fight as the action quickens. In the last moments of the round, Hopkins lands some blows of his own after taking good care of the punches. Usually recognized for his striking prowess, Hopkins continues to defy expectations in the fifth round by outboxing Trinidad and roaming all around the ring.
Joppy did by letting Trinidad lay on himself. Hopkins used a lot of this footwork, legs up, moving around. That's not good. Got his back against the rope.
In the sixth round, Trinidad shines, backing Hopkins onto the ropes and connecting with many left hooks. It is evident that Trinidad wins in the sixth round.
Felix is a marathon runner who builds the tempo from round to round, and he's trying to build it with the left hook right here.
Back to the ropes again, Hopkins.
And it was by the seventh where Hopkins began to outclass Trinidad and lands numerous good combinations.
Straight right hand, but Hopkins is not loading up on these right hands. He's throwing short, quick,
Coming on an angle, but he just stays right in front of him. Bernard gets up first and hurts him all the time.
When a guy is somewhere along the way, it will make a difference. And if it doesn't, what is it?
Hopkins better be careful. That's it.
But he hasn't hurt Hopkins. After the Joppy fight, there seemed to be no question about Trinidad.
In the 10th round of action, Trinidad comes out swinging, sensing he is in trouble. However, it seems he has punched himself out after launching multiple harmless flurries. Just before the bell, Hopkins stuns Trinidad with a right to the jaw after landing powerful blows in the last minute. Before the last round, Hopkins strikes and obviously defeated Trinidad with punch after punch, and he lands a massive right to the chin halfway through the round, sending Trinidad sprawled on the canvas, ending the Puerto Rican in brutal fashion.
Career. Harold, how do you have it coming to the 12th? Ignition, 108. He tried to do that against Trinidad without success. Hopkins imposing his will and his skill on the man who is tonight.
Trinidad continues to come.
He'll never quit. He'll never stop coming.
No retreat.
Oh, huge right hand. Huge right hand by Hopkins. Gotta go Trinidad. I'm not sure Tito can get up. He's got the desire. He's never been knocked out. This fight is over. Steve Smoker stops it. No.
Bernard Hopkins has put himself up there in the list.
In his career and his life on his own terms, it's cost him a lot. He got it all back tonight.
You know, that was a lot of inspiration in New York.
Hopkins was named the 2001 Fighter of the Year by the Ring magazine. After 2001, Hopkins went on to fight for a remarkable 15 years, finally retiring in 2016, after Trinidad demolishing William Joppy and Oscar De La Hoya before falling to Jermaine Taylor twice. On 21st of May 2011, Hopkins at the age of 46 became the oldest world champion in boxing history by defeating Jean Pascal by unanimous decision for the WBC and the Ring Light Heavyweight Championship. Felix Trinidad fought only 4 more times, resulting in 2 losses to end his career against Winky Wright and Roy Jones Jr. Felix Trinidad would retire with one of the most dominant careers in the welterweight division. Hopkins, on the other hand, goes down as among the greatest of the middleweights ever, not only solidifying himself among his challengers in the 1990s, but also well into the 2000s, and finally in the 2010s, retiring at the remarkable 51 years of age. His brutal rise and longevity in the boxing world goes down as possibly the most amazing legacy the sport has ever seen. And the iconic display of brutality against one of the hottest fighters in the boxing world, Felix Trinidad, will forever be remembered as one of the greatest performances ever. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe for more boxing and fighting sports content. Thanks for watching.